Missouri. Senator Schmitt, as always, sir, welcome back. Speaking of Iranian impeachment, here's John Kirby, the Biden spokesman. Here he is today. You're going to love this. Please take a listen.
We certainly share concerns about any diversion of humanitarian assistance for Hamas purposes. We have seen no indications as of today that any of the trucks that Kareem talked about, any of the material in those trucks, have been diverted to Hamas or been absconded by Hamas.
Sure, Senator Schmitt, they're just a swell bunch of people, those folks, and they wouldn't dare get involved and start swiping these materials. I mean, Senator Schmitt, how can the Bidens be so naive as to make a statement like that, where there, by the way, as you probably know, there's a history of Hamas stealing humanitarian aid and working hand in glove with UN sympathizers? I mean, I'm not making this up. There are facts. How can they do this?
Well, Larry, they can't admit that they've been wrong. And it actually goes deeper than just the Biden administration. Barack Obama is still the center of gravity in the Democrat Party. Joe Biden wouldn't be president without Barack Obama cutting a deal when Bernie Sanders looked like he was going to be the nominee. All the Obama people are still very much a part of Biden's world. And so this playing footsie with Iran on, re-engaging on a nuclear deal, you got to put that in historical context. Barack Obama sent pallets of cash. President Trump came in, he cut all that off. Iran was broke, Hamas was broke, there were the Abraham Accords, peace was flourishing in the Middle East, and then the Democrats and Joe Biden's obsession with Iran took over again. So you got the $6 billion, of course, that was going to be released recently. They are not enforcing any of the oil sanctions. They could be doing that right now. Mm-hmm. Iran is flush with cash, which means Hamas is flush with cash. Joe Biden came in, released $300+ million of the Palestinian Authority when he came in. That was cut off during the Trump administration. So what does all that mean? It means that they've got a lot of money to do terrible things, and they can't admit that they've been wrong. And we've seen this play out in the most horrific way in the last couple of weeks. But that, I think, is at the heart of it. This is really at the core of the Obama, now Biden foreign policy, and it's failed miserably.
But here, I mean, but I just want to say, Iran backing Hamas, calling the shots, backing Hezbollah. Look, they've killed 30-something Americans. John Ratcliffe was just describing it. These were horrific killings. They've taken a bunch of Americans hostage, along with the Israeli hostages. I understand that. But they've killed Americans. They've taken us hostage. They are shooting at our naval ships. They are shooting at our embassy in Iraq. Houthis, another Iranian puppet, is shooting at us. And fortunately, the Navy is shooting back. And we're putting more and more ships and readying military personnel and support. But, Senator, these are acts of war. And I don't hear any of that from Biden. I mean, Kirby, whatever, but Biden or Blinken. These are acts of war against the United States. If Americans were shot, killed, what would Ronald Reagan say? I don't think he'd say, it's time to have a ceasefire. What would Donald Trump say? I don't think he'd say it's time to have a ceasefire. I mean, hell, you remember, Trump bombed the Syrian airport while he was having chocolate cake dessert with President Xi. All right, does that send a message while they're having dessert at Mar-a-Lago? I think it sends a message. Trump killed Soleimani, and not a whimper out of Iran because they were broke. I mean, the whole situation here is out of control. You see what I'm saying? They have declared war on us, but we haven't declared war. We don't even see it, the Bidens.
Yeah, they respect power. And that's about it. And I think there's a fundamental miscalculation on behalf, that Biden has made, that Obama made, that somehow, if you release money and ask them to play nice, that they're going to somehow obey the rules that we would expect them to. That's not how it works. And we've seen it play out tragically. What a real missed opportunity, Larry, last week when Joe Biden addressed the nation from the Oval Office, what he should have said was that any attack on Americans or American interests by any of these proxies, we will consider that to be an attack by Iran itself. That is our red line. You need that kind of clarity. He did not have it. He didn't have it at all, because there's a big difference, Larry, between Iran telling their proxies, don't do this, versus them just not saying anything. There's a big difference between that. And right now, my concern is that we're in a place where Iran can have this plausible deniability. The Biden administration hasn't been tough enough on Iran. I mean, they're trying to confirm Jack Lew to be the ambassador to Israel, Larry. He was an architect of the Iran deal. So the United States ambassador to the country that's under assault by Iran and its proxies. We want to send an Iran sympathizer over there to be ambassador. I'm voting no on that. I hope that doesn't get through the Senate, but that just kind of tells you how embedded this philosophy is within the Biden administration.
Senator, one other point before I lose you. Spot on. By the way, I wrote as much right after that Oval Office speech. With respect to this $105 billion supplemental funding bill, amen to Israel. I don't even know what enough is enough. But I had a big problem linking Israel and Ukraine. And then I have a bigger problem. I mean, Senator McConnell said this yesterday on one of the news shows. I think it was Shannon Bream. Anyway, what about the southern border? By the way, there are potential terrorists coming up through the southern border, as you well know, and then the rest of it has just been a catastrophe anyway. We need money for the southern border. They're trying to put it all in one package, and whatever, $800 million would go to more babysitters, not law enforcement at the southern border, but babysitting.
Yeah, that's exactly why these different aid packages need to be considered separately. There are different realities on the ground. There are different objectives. There are different likelihoods of success. There are different relationships we have. There's different levels of trust that the money's actually going to the right place. There's all kinds of variables that are unique to each situation. Ukraine has gotten over $112 billion already, and nobody can really articulate what victory looks like. They're in a protracted war with Russia. Israel has very, very clear objectives here. They need some level of support. That ought to be considered differently. And by the way, the southern border should be considered differently. You know, color me skeptical that the Biden administration can be trusted with just money to go do the right thing. I can speak from some experience. When I was Attorney General in Missouri, we litigated the Biden administration when they didn't build the wall that they had the money for, because then they started diverting and paying contractors to not build the wall. There was a court order for them to enforce Remain in Mexico. They refused to do it, and we had contempt motions, in place. And then Title 42. So I don't trust Joe Biden on the border, but that is beside the point. We actually have to have a debate on these separately because they're different considerations. I think the American people expect that.
I get it. Senator Schmitt, up against a hard break, but thank you, sir. Thank you ever so much for coming back on and your views. All right, folks, coming right up to you.